Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Today is Monday, November 18th, 2024, and we're going to start the day off with our workshop. It is 1:01 p.m. If everybody could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time on the agenda, we take a moment of silence for individual prayer, reflection, or meditation. We take this time to honor and remember our first responders and the men and women in our military who keep us safe and protect our freedoms at home and abroad. All right, great. Thank you, everybody. All right, no additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda today. Just a few reminders and announcements. County offices will be closed Thursday, November 28th and Friday, November 29th for Thanksgiving. I want to remind everybody to visit our transparency dashboards on flaglercounty.gov. You can find our citizen advisory boards there and view open positions. You can see all of our capital projects, the status, the funding, the schedule, and the drainage maintenance is another important portal where you can look at all of our countywide drainage projects. Upcoming commission meetings and workshops. It's a busy end to the year. We've got the swearing-in ceremony tomorrow here in the chambers at 4 p.m. with a reception immediately following, and a workshop on Thursday, November 21st at 9 a.m., and then a regular meeting Monday, December 2nd at 9 a.m. All right. I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything else in here. With that, we will go ahead to our first item on the agenda, and that's our capital projects discussion.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. And I know it's a little bit unique as we have two commissioners transitioning out. Today will be their last workshop and night meeting. And then we welcome tomorrow the two new incoming commissioners. So I thought that it was appropriate or a good time to actually give an update on some of our capital improvement projects that we've been working on, especially for those that are transitioning out, to be able to see what's been accomplished under your leadership. And then as we welcome the other two, there will be overlap. A few of these items that we've been working on will be coming back to you probably sometime next month. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of showcase where we were at and provide you with an update. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first one is Commerce Parkway. As you know, this is the construction of about 1.7 miles of new roadway. It's going to connect between US 1 and State Road 100. Right now, this would be a two-lane paved road. It does have some sidewalk for pedestrian use as well as stormwater management incorporated in that. It is a project that we're working on in conjunction, not only Flagler County and FDOT, but we're also working with the City of Bunnell on this project as it's located in the city limits. The status is it's about 47% complete. We're going to show you a drone video that was just shot last week, but the project budget's just shy of $9.6 million. We anticipate that this project will be completed July of 2025. So we're just going to show you a real quick drone footage of this project.
culvert looks a lot better than the one that's over on Culvert Lane.
So we just wanted to share with you, you can see some of the progress that's being made out there. They still got quite a bit of work to do when it comes to putting in the infrastructure for the stormwater system. But we just wanted to give you, that quick glimpse of where we're at today, and it is on track to be done July of next year. So moving along, we're going to go on and talk about County Road 90. As you may remember, this is actually the second phase of County Road 90. When we had put it out to bid previously, we had a little bit of a funding shortfall, so we had to look at managing this as two different projects. So this is the second phase, which provides for pavement between County Road 305 and County Road 75 on County Road 90. This is the area that's out there for those folks that frequent the gun club. It's the road out there. It's about 2.2 miles of roadway. It's about 95% complete. It was completely funded with FDOT. We were able to work with the FDOT to include in this project the safety improvements that were going to be added at 305 and 304 or 302 when we were looking at that four-way stop, and when we had done a study to see what recommendation they could make there. We were able to get FDOT to include those safety improvements at that intersection as part of the funding for this project. So that's good news, but we do anticipate this project is going to be complete by the end of the year. So we should see this thing wrap up sometime in December.
I've driven on it the last 2 weeks, and looks complete to me.
Good.
It's done.
Good.
Yeah.
We're glad to hear that. Then the other one we have is Old Hawk Creek. As you recall, Old Hawk Creek, it's a 4.9-mile project, but part of it is repaving or resurfacing existing road, and then the other portion is full, completely new road system, trying to convert the unpaved to now a fully paved road. So we've got that project there. It also includes some additional drainage and signage and some bridge improvements on that project. This one is a combination of FDOT and some of our general revenue fund. We're at 30% complete right now, and we are on schedule to have this wrapped up in June of 2025. And one of the projects that you're probably more familiar with is the beach management, the beach and dune renourishment. As you know, we've got 18 miles of coastline that is in need of construction of a dune and beach. We do have it divided into 4 distinct sections or reaches based on funding, environmental impacts, as well as permitting. So most of the funding is secured. Our staff's worked really hard trying to identify some additional funding through DEP and some of their programs, but we do have a funding gap as we work towards the construction of this entire project. But this is a combination of federal Army Corps funding as well as state funds in the way of FDOT, FDEP, and then coming right now from Flagler County in the way of tourism and our half-cent sales tax. We anticipate the cost to be about $104.5 million. We did complete Reach 1 already earlier this year prior to Labor Day, but we do anticipate that this entire project's going to take until 2028 to complete as we move north. And then following the actual construction will be then the ongoing maintenance to support it.
Just want to remind everybody, if you've got questions after each of the presentations for each project, just get my attention and I'll recognize you if you have questions.
So moving on to fire stations, we have two of them. This is the first. This is for Fire Station 51, and this would be to replace a old station that exists right now in Espanola. The one in Espanola is actually in the right-of-way. It's not even on a parcel of land. But we are going to be constructing a 9,000 square foot fire station. It'll be located at the corner of County Road 305 and State Road 100. We had hired Schenkel Schultz to design both fire stations, and they are moving together kind of in tandem. The design's already underway. We had selected the construction manager at risk back in October. And this project is a combination of general revenue as well as the half-cent sales tax. Project budget's $7 million. We believe that the construction will start sometime in summer of 2025, and then it'll be about a year to wrap that up. On this particular property located at 305 and 100, this is where we envision Public Works or Road and Bridge will be co-located. They'll be occupying what we internally kind of call the Red Roof Inn, but it's the property that the county had acquired, and so we're making improvements to that property so that they could both be co-located, share the same driveway, as well as septic and sewer out there, so. The other fire project that we have is actually for the fire administration and the replacement of Station 62. This would be a 12,000 square foot facility. It'll be located right across the street, directly across from the government complex. Again, Schenkel Schultz was the architect on this project. The only difference, this one is actually covered in combination between our legislative grant. As you recall, we got a $10 million appropriation, and then the remaining $2.4 million came from half-cent sales tax. And this is following the same construction schedule as Station 51. Yes, sir.
A question on 51. During Milton, I don't see Jonathan here, but one of the requests following the staging of the different materials was a larger area of asphalt to be able to stage some of those emergency procedures for the west side. I was just saying, as we look at, as the funding for this one moves forward, if there's a possibility of keeping that in the back of the mind, if anything comes available, it might be a good spot to come back to us with.
Yeah, I think the co-location, I think the proximity to the community out there, I think it makes sense. We don't have a large amount of, well, I know we don't have any really savings or additional money in this project, but I do think that it's an opportunity that we could go back, not necessarily as part of this project, but we just have to identify some funding and see how we could put in a larger area so that we can accommodate like points of distribution or even setting up the trailers for showers and laundry facilities, because the biggest challenge that we have on the west side is finding an area that you have that's got that hard surface that isn't going to impact the rest of the community. So.
Well, one of the things that they may want to look at is the stormwater capacity, because if we wouldn't want to, design in some extra capacity for later so you don't have to modify the ponds.
Yeah, no, it is something that we were considering. Just it's the asphalt. It's going to be the more costly, I think, for
Right.
that project. But certainly we can talk to the engineers that are managing that project.
That would be 51, right?
Yeah, Station 51. And then that brings up, this is, as you know, a public-private partnership that we have with SMA Healthcare. And this was to build a men's residential treatment facility as well as a crisis stabilization unit. This would be located in close proximity or across the street of their existing campus, which is off Justice Lane, right there near Old Hawk Creek, just south of State Road 100. But this would be for a 24-hour site that would be secured. They're looking to add 48 beds of integrated stabilization and substance abuse. We do have SMA Healthcare working with us on this, where they've been part of the um, process in procuring and selecting a firm. So they were part of the team that selected DJ Design to actually design their facility. DJ Design, not only have they done work for Flagler County in the past, but they're also currently working with SMA on some of their other facilities. So we're currently also selecting a construction manager at risk on this project, which will work with our design team to bring that project into the budget. We do have a $10 million legislative grant. That was one of the appropriations that we got. We do anticipate starting construction in the summer of 2025, and again, having completion the following year, which would be summer of '26. And then that brings up the Flagler County Nexus Center. This is, as you know, construction of a 22,000 square foot facility. It's located right across the street from the Sheriff's Operations Center. It'll also be across the street from the Bunnell City Hall and future Police Department. This one is a project that isn't, it's using the space to co-locate two different departments. It'll be the Bunnell branch for library and the administrative headquarters, and it'll also be home to Health and Human Services. The only component of Health and Human Services that won't be coming along is the adult daycare. That'll still continue out on Belterre Parkway or Belterre Boulevard. But in this project, we'll also have a conference center or a community room that can be used for our congregate meals and senior programming. We feel that the co-location of the two, there's some synergy between the library and the senior program, but that's moving forward. They're actually forming tilt wall panels right now on site, so they're already forming those up. We got a look at some of that last week, as well as the colors, the material that they're going to be using on the exterior. The construction is at about 15%, and this is a myriad of different funding. We have some general revenue. We were successful in getting some state grants, as well as use of passport revenues and impact fees. So this project's a little bit over 16 million. We did issue the notice to proceed back in July, so we anticipate construction, substantial construction, to be done in November of 2025. We are on a tight time frame on this project. As you recall, some of the state funding was tied to a completion. I think it needs to be done by December of 2025. So we're on track, and we hope to have that ready, or at least substantial completion, November of '25. And then this is one of the newer projects that we're working on. This is new legislative appropriation that we got this year. This would be for the multi-purpose emergency preparedness shelter. And we were looking at building that out at the fairgrounds. It would be used as a replacement facility of Cattleman's Hall. There is some planning work that still needs to be done as we look at that site and really look at a master plan of where this facility should be located in relation to the other buildings that are out there. But we are moving forward on that. We don't have a schedule yet because we're still kind of doing that master planning of the site. And then the other project, the next two that I have are two that are not as far along where we're at. The Flagler Executive Airport Terminal, as you recall, the design of that facility was several years ago. It was to design a 15,000 square foot facility that would end up replacing the existing, existing 6,400 square foot metal terminal building that we have now. That building is probably 40 years old. And it currently houses not just our airport staff, but we do operate a fixed base operator, an FBO. We do have a small pilot's lounge area right now, some public restrooms, and very small tenant space. That new 15,000 square foot terminal would end up accommodating not just the airport administrative offices, as well as the FBO. But it would also create more public space, more meeting space. It can accommodate, excuse me, the room for some additional tenants. This project is part of the approved master plan that was updated back in 2015. And the construction of this project right now is anticipated to start in January of 2025. We have right now proposals that are out on the street that are due to come back, and we anticipate a bid opening on November 22nd. So we have that. The total project cost is about $12 million. As you know, the Flagler Executive Airport is an economic engine for the county. It does serve as a gateway into the community. So the new terminal facility, as you can tell from the rendering, the top one is what you would see as you approach the airport coming in by car. The bottom picture is what you would see on the air side. But this new facility would be, I guess, the next step in evolution of transforming what has existed as a small county airport into a premier location for businesses looking to locate in Flagler County or in the surrounding communities. So here's a look at the site plan of where the new facility would be located. So as you come up the airport drive, what you will see, some of the landside improvements that are part of this project include the placement of a roundabout. You'll see some realignment of the road and some additional connections to some of the existing facilities that are out there now, like the old Ginn hangar, the current airport hangar for Fireflight, and the other businesses that are out there. So the new terminal facility would be at the, basically line up with the roundabout. And then you would end up having a future corporate hangar, which would be located west of the new terminal, kind of in line with where the restaurant is, Tailwinds or landing strip. And then some of this stuff on this project or what you're looking at, like there's the proposed apron reconstruction and expansion. That project has already been done in anticipation of this project. So funding for that large concrete apron had been done last year or this past year. But then you can kind of see the proposed new parking that would be added to support the facility. And then you'll see a proposed future pond. As you recall, over the years, we acquired that additional property right there where that pond is located to accommodate for the realignment of that road. Again, this is all part of the approved airport master plan from several years ago. And so this is just really bringing it forward. When we're looking at the funding for this project, I did mention that the bids were due to be opened in the end of this month, or actually I think it's probably later this week. We should have a clearer picture of what that cost should look like once we open those bids. We had anticipated that the project would be somewhere around $12 million, with about 10.5 for the terminal and then 1.5 for the land improvements. That's the roundabout and the realignment. But we should have a better idea of what that funding is going to look like after this week when we evaluate the proposals. But in order to keep the project moving forward and in order to use that legislative grant within the allotted time, we are hoping to bring it forward for consideration at a December board meeting. But this would be for the consideration, not just for the construction, but as you can see for the funding that we've identified, we do anticipate getting some additional FDOT funding next year. They're on a different calendar year than we are for fiscal years. Theirs actually starts July 1. So we should receive the remaining money that's been appropriated or anticipated from FDOT next July. But there will be a requirement for a match from the airport. In the past, we've either provided a loan from the general fund, as well as the airport has secured their own loan. So we are proposing to come back at December with whatever that looks like as far as the amount needed for a loan as well as the award of construction. And then the next project would be the Eco Discovery Center. And this is something that we've had tried to submit as a legislative ask last year. Unfortunately, it did not get picked up for funding. But this would become the really a Eco Discovery Center that not only supports the region, but supports the community as a whole. I'll show you on the next slide the connectivity to some of the stuff that's already either been developed or things that are in the works. But this would be for a 10,000 square foot facility. It would be located on the south side of State Road 100, east of Old Kings, and really just west of the pedestrian bridge. I've asked Amy Lukasik to kind of give you an overview of what that project looks like. We are looking to do a design build, and we are currently in the way of advertising for that. This particular project has a budget of about $10 million with proposed funding coming from tourism development. The TDC board has met and had voted on this project in support of using the TDC funding to fund this. It has not come back to the board, so we will anticipate bringing that back to the board at a later date once we have an idea of what that procurement or that cost is going to look like. We do anticipate on the schedule we're on now that it would probably end up being a winter of 2025 construction timeframe with completion following the following year. But here's a look at that local or regional significance, not only in addition to the sidewalk system that exists on State Road 100, Old Kings, A1A, and Colbert Lane. This project supports local and regional significance, not just to the ecotourism side of things, but also connection to Florida Sun Trail Network, as well as the Graham Swamp Trail and the Lehigh Trail system. So last Friday, we had our annual CIP summit with the city, something that City of Palm Coast hosts, but it's something that we attend annually to kind of work together on different projects that we have in the pipeline to see if there are ways that we can, kind of link those together or work together, work a little bit smarter, more efficient. So what the City of Palm Coast had shared with us is the trail that you see in red. That would go through our property on Graham Swamp, but it would create what they're considering phase 2 of the Graham Swamp Trail. They actually have an application into the state as part of the Sun Trail system. So they're already moving forward with that. They do have money that they're looking to go back to their board because they do have funding for a grant to start the design of their project. And then on that map, you'll see the purple is the Lehigh Trail, and then the blue line there is what we constructed last year. It's that new Graham Swamp Trail connector that includes that pedestrian bridge. I know that we were working on additional Sun Trail trails, not only along Old Kings Road, but through the development of what is the Bulow Regional Park. And so you can kind of see where the proposed Eco Discovery Center would be located. It's that yellow star. And then that green kind of parallelogram looking shape would be the future Bulow Regional Park property. We do have funding that we had received from FDOT. I don't know if it's actually gone back to the board yet, or maybe it's coming up at a meeting soon, and that's to move forward with the design of the property. I believe we had selected Kimley Horn to do that work, but we will have some additional trail system that goes through Bulow with the hope of creating additional trail connectivity out onto Old Kings Road through property that we have there that would tie it in, as well as future expansion, which would hopefully get it out to John Anderson in the way of potentially another pedestrian-type bridge that will cross over Bulow. So I think the other comment that I had in talking to Palm Coast, we are working on a couple different ESL projects where there is additional connection through the city of Palm Coast where there is a proposed connection that would end up going through the north side of Graham Swamp and ultimately would connect over to Waterfront Park as well as the city of Palm Coast Linear Park. So you can see there's a lot of pretty unique connections as far as trail systems that you could take outside of, being on the side of a road that would have you going through nice wooded properties. I think having the Eco Discovery Center located there on State Road 100 would provide an enormous benefit to the trail system at large. And it would also serve as the State Road 100 trailhead. And I did ask Amy to provide you with a brief overview, so I think she's going to kind of go through that in a little bit more detail.
Good afternoon, Amy Lukasik, Tourism Development Director.
Welcome.
Okay. All right, I'm going to give a high-level overview of the project and kind of just share with you a timeline of why we're here and how this came to be and where we're at now. But one of my rules of thumb is to always share when giving a presentation to remind everyone our mission, vision, and our values. And I say this because our mission ties directly to this project, which is to elevate Flagler County as a viable and sustainable place to live, work, and visit. Also, here's pretty standard text that we share in presentations of what we do. Again, it ties directly to this project. We significantly contribute to the economy. We support a variety of local jobs, both direct and indirect. We promote Flagler County as a first-class visitor destination and enhance the quality of life for residents. So how we got here was back in late 2019, we held a strategic plan with all of our stakeholders and partners and organizations and local businesses. And this specific objective, the conversation that surrounded it was, look, we have a lot of great assets here in our community, and unfortunately, not a lot of people know about it, even our own residents. So how is there a way to tell people about it? So I think the presentation jumped. Thank you. And so one of the gaps that we had here is we do not have a consumer-facing opportunity with our visitors and our residents, potential business investment, where we could tell about our other assets. We're not a community that has a lot of billboards and kind of in-your-face attractions. We call them turnstile attractions. We say Mother Nature is our main attraction. So they said we need an opportunity to get people more inland, and so that they spend more money and stay longer and increase stay. It also, down in objective or the tactics B2 and B3, was to identify opportunities to expand the center to business and residents and student acquisitions, and opportunities to expand beyond just information such as event space. And then, of course, you have your own strategic plan, and I've highlighted the two focus areas where this project fills those objectives, which is economic vitality, improve quality of life by enhancing economic vitality in Flagler County, diversify and enhance the tax base to improve the economy, and promote and market Flagler County as a desirable place to live, work, and visit. And then under growth and infrastructure, preserve and enhance cultural, recreation, and leisure activities. And I just want to remind you also of the county's vision, because if this project doesn't sum it up, I'm not sure what does, but it's to make Flagler County a vibrant and prosperous community with a focus on exceptional quality of life. This project is that investment in your quality of life. It touches on 3 goals and 3 objectives. And under growth and infrastructure, one goal and two objectives. Okay, so now what we were tasked with this goal of a visitor center, if you will. So we started to do a lot of research, years of research. And what led us to this location was a lot of, I say stars were aligning with the state's priorities and other initiatives that led to the popularity of outdoor recreation. And in 2019, DEP did a study, and I'm just going to share with you a couple slides because a lot of times people don't associate that there's an economic impact to be had with outdoor recreation, but you can see here that it does. And here's a nice slide that shows when they surveyed residents and visitors to the state of Florida, these are the top activities that were desired by each entity. So hiking and walking trails, biking paths, nature centers, community parks, wildlife viewing. So we all know here we have a great trail system and outside of the beach, this is probably our number one inland ecotourism asset. So this center really continues to enhance that. So the location there, I won't go too far, but you can see exactly where it's at. Here's some quick facts. It is a 23-acre parcel that is owned by the county right now. Public Works uses it to store their materials. It's 1 mile east of I-95 that sees about 182,000 daily trips off that exit. And right in front of the center is 22,700 trips. And of course, it's right next to the new pedestrian bridge and adjacent to the future Below Creek Regional Park. Here's a little bit more detailed map of that trails, of the current trail systems and the proposed. For those of you that don't know, trails is actually a really high priority with the state. They continue to put more funding into enhancement, improvement, and expansion of trails. It's also a priority for Northeast Florida Regional Council. They are developing a master plan for ecotourism activities and trails for the entire region. And they've created an ecotourism steering committee that I participate on, and they'll actually be coming here in January to do a workshop with our stakeholders on how to create different itineraries that can not only promote and use our trails, but also send people out to the businesses. It's also a priority for Visit Florida, where the state of Florida in their budget gave Visit Florida an extra $5 million to promote focusing on the trail system. And it's believed that they are able to demonstrate a good return on investment and that funding will increase. And when we talk about the Below Creek Headwaters Regional Park, this is a conceptual amenity drawing that Kimley Horn had in their presentation. We are doing a project kickoff in early December, but a lot of what you see here, I know their goal is to provide amenities that are more environmentally conscientious. And so the center really will serve as a gateway not only to the regional park, but also to the region itself in partnership with Northeast Florida Regional Council. And this is a conceptual drawing of the front. And not going to too many of the goals. I'm just going to highlight a couple important ones. One of the goals of the center is to drive local and state tax revenue by expanding spend throughout the community to further diversify and create a more sustainable tourism economy and product. And to enhance the quality of life, it helps attract new businesses and investments to the community and also generate a variety of diverse revenue streams for longevity and sustainability. Some of the objectives to enhance the quality of recreation and tourism opportunities for all visitors and residents, and partner and support other local entities and organizations within the county and region, and to bring awareness and overall promotion of related local businesses and other points of interest within the county and any events that are going on. So really a one-stop shop for anyone coming into the facility. This is some of the main features and services and amenities of the facility. It's important to us outside of just our office. It will house our offices and economic development. We look at revenue generating opportunities. So it's important that we have a ticketing component, gift shop, an informational hub, of course, exhibits, interactive displays, rentals for small entrepreneur opportunities. Also, it'll house the offices of the Flagler County Cultural Council. We will be giving them an office space. They will also have use of our meeting space and event space, and it'll be good for them because that'll be their main hub for all of their events and meetings that they have. Hopefully in the future, when we get a shuttle bus, then we can utilize the shuttle bus as well for any tours that they may have. We do have about 3,000 event and meeting space and interpretive programs such as guided tours, outdoor amenities, a trailhead, outdoor classrooms, and art installations, possibly around the water feature, and serve as a voting location for our local supervisor of elections. She did request that we host that when she needs it and provide plenty of parking. And also, Jonathan will help to serve as logistics distribution for any post-disaster recovery. So on August 7th, we invited all of our stakeholders and partners and organizations that we work with on a daily basis, and we gave a informational meeting and gave them this presentation and asked if they'd be interested in partnering and whatever that could look like or be a part of future task force. And so this is an example of the card that we left there, and we had about 80 respondents, and then they could check what areas they wanted to be a part of. We've completed the NEPA study, the cultural resource assessment survey, the site surveys completed, the site appraisal, and letters of support from local organizations, region organizations, and from the state. We also created a microsite for the public on our website that has all of the information on the project, FAQs, all my past presentations, and a video and how to partner with us. And so now to close, I just would like to show you a conceptual video to kind of bring it to life, all the words that I usually say. The idea is to have one side of the center where it's all focused on water related, and then the other side is more land. This space here would be dedicated to FC3 for local artists that could rotate out their work, also for historical exhibits, and be revenue generation for them. A lot of the outdoor features is where we would look to partner with organizations or P3 partnerships or sponsorships. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was really all we wanted to show you was the projects where we were at under the leadership of the two departing commissioners, and then just to share the work that we have left to do on the two remaining ones, one being the airport and the other one being tourism. So we do anticipate bringing those back sometime, probably in December timeframe. If not December, probably the beginning of the year. So just wanted to provide that as an overview, answer any questions that you may have.
Right. Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, just one question back on Commerce Parkway. Is that road, is the right-of-way that we have for that road, I know it's not even finished yet, but 10 years, 20 years from now, is there enough room there to make it a 4-lane road without getting additional land?
I would ask Hamid probably to come up. It's, as far as the details, I don't have those level of detail, but welcome Hamid to come up and talk about it.
Well, the one thing I'd say is it was, I think for cost purposes, it's a rural section, so it has swales on the sides.
Yeah.
So if it went to 4 lanes, it would probably be curb and gutter and an urban section to fit, but
Like there.
Yes, good afternoon. Hamid Tabassian, County Engineer. I believe that has a 100-foot wide right-of-way. And like the chair indicated, it would be difficult with the typical section that we got, a rural section, to have, to add another 2-lane, make that a 4-lane corridor there. But
I
it
just-
is
I
not
just-
that is
yeah.
impossible.
Right,
and
right. Well, we
100
had to
foot
make it
wide,
possible
yeah.
to
Yeah.
fund it. I just say that, 25 years from now, somebody will say, yeah.
Yeah, I understand initially that was the goal, to have that a 4-lane connector from US 1 to 100. And because of the lack of right-of-way that was being provided, that became a 2-lane. Yes, sir.
thank you.
And-
Anybody else? Go ahead.
And then the last one, since I see our supervisor of elections is here, and I understand why it's not already in the capital improvement projects, but this is my last time here. I do think there needs to be a capital improvement project to expand or build a new office for the supervisor of elections. And I know it's just conceptual right now, but I want to make sure we keep thinking about that and coming up with a plan for it. And if we don't actually do some of the groundwork now, we can probably save a year or two in the overall project if we kind of clean up some of the ideas for it and that kind of thing.
Thank you for mentioning it. We do have it on our CIP plan. It's just listed as an unfunded project right now because we haven't identified the funding to pay for it. But we do have it as a placeholder.
Right. But there are some things you can do almost at very little cost that can save you a lot of time later on.
Thank you. Any questions? Pam? Kim? Go ahead.
Is it? It's
Red
on.
light.
Is it on now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So far, I see in our budget plan $212,000. So I'm a little bit more of a budget conscious person. So I'm going to just be watching the numbers and wondering whether there's little things that we can adjust here or there. That's my biggest concern. But it's amazing stuff going on here, and I'm very proud to be here to work with all of you.
Thank you. Commissioner Pennington.
Just two things. One is Bull Creek wasn't listed in here, but I'm assuming it probably, when it gets more defined, will come back in December, maybe, hopefully by December, to see some ideas of what we're doing there. And then it's not in this discussion, and I don't want to bring it up, but I did get some feedback from our legislative partners out of Tallahassee about what would make more successful for us this year in terms of legislative asks. They have a theme. I'll go ahead and tell you that their theme this year is going to be agriculture. And it's more likely to get funding. And then they have a couple different things that might help us just be more successful. So I don't know when the right time to bring those up, because when do you have to have that back to the state, or March? No. January.
I think we're looking at a January 8th possibly for the delegation meeting. I don't know if it's been confirmed as far as a date, but probably the beginning of January.
Yeah.
I do know that staff is already compiling and working on our portion of that legislative program. So certainly we can have another discussion with the board if we'd like to add or change some of the stuff we've been working on.
I'll just quickly tell you what the feedback was. So the one is that they are interested in agriculture projects. They're most likely to get funded. The second one is anything that falls into the Inflation Infrastructure Act, because the federal government is paying the state for projects. So for instance, if the state puts out $1 towards a project of ours and it falls into that act, the state gets $3 back per dollar. So they're really interested in doing projects in that bucket. If you have a project that is big, like stormwater or whatever, and you don't believe it would get funded, send it to him in phases, and it's more likely to get funded by phasing. And so, and I can't remember the fourth one, but in like our water project that we have the outstanding grant ask for, they'd be willing to, and I know Renner's done it for us, they'd be willing to go to the DEP and talk to them at length to try to push the grant through. So, so I got a feeling like maybe our fire department stuff might not be on the list of something they'd be interested in, but if you want to take another crack at it and, and talk about it at some meeting and finalize it, all things ag would probably have your best bet, which is an odd duck for us because we don't really have any projects around it. But I was telling Heidi, we have that stormwater plan out in the west. And if we wanted to take a phase of it and get it funded through the state as a benefit to the farms out there, we might have a good shot at getting some portion of that done this year because of the theme. So I just wanted to bring that up in general. And I know
the UF Ag Extension is asking for a facility, and we're in the middle of talking about whether or not we need another place for the Humane Society. So I don't know if it's worth it to ask for a new UF Extension facility and then use their existing for animal control. It's just things like that that can be thought of. But this year it's ag. Last year it was hurricane and wildlife corridor was their themes. So completely up to the board whether or not they want to go back and touch it again or happy to land where you're at. But it's felt like, the fire department might not be a reality in the up in Tallahassee this year. And I know we talked about water not getting funded and roads not getting funded, but with the new Infrastructure Act, it sounded like we had a better shot with roads also this year for funding. So that was it. I just want to give you that feedback because it was helpful to hear it from them, what they're looking for.
Do we want to revisit legislative and as a workshop in December?
Maybe
Is there any
the
other-
next meeting, we should probably bring it back or early on so that they can, that's my advice. I don't want to strike out up there and I just don't, it's up to you. Though.
Well, if we set a future workshop date, at least we'll give everybody else some time to also do some legwork.
Yeah, because if you think about your projects and your districts and how can you package them into that Infrastructure Act or and that's where the lobbyists should really be helping us here is how to form your project into a project that gets done. And if they're getting $3 for every dollar they're spending, and so that's why we're seeing a lot of projects get done is they're getting paid, they're getting more money than they put out. So we need to find out what fits into the Inflation Infrastructure Act. Does your project, Malacom, anything, how can we get it done? And then certainly around ag, we're like, well, we don't have an ag project. Well, we can get our stormwater if we talk about, some of those canals and work done. Might be able to bucket it. And show the benefits of the farms, and that certainly might ring a bell and help us so that we have less money to put out. We have to put out on our stormwater plan. So that's just my 2 cents.
Kim, Commissioner, soon to be Commissioner.
Soon.
Fine.
Elect. So that would be my question is when did our lobbyists learn of the overall theme for the year, for the legislative year? And what's his level of involvement in leading us towards a successful project? So that's their job. Basically, the lobbyist should be here, or at least give us a report on the type of projects that he or she, haven't met them yet, but what they recommend that we push forward. I don't think that individual commissioners are going to be able to have our own individual projects, but they surely should be able to guide us as to what is or is not going to be a successful project. How long ago? Do you have any idea when the theme was picked? Not that you should, the lobbyist should.
I only found out about themes last year when I was looking at cattlemen's, and that's how it kind of surfaced into a hurricane. So it was not a known thing to me, or that there were technically themes.
Did you have something to add, Holly?
Yes, Holly Albanese, Assistant County Administrator. I've been working with the lobbyists because I'm also acting as the legislative liaison for the county. We went back out for a new, we put an RFP out for a new state and federal lobbyists. So that just got approved in October. Was it October or November?
October.
Was it October? The end of October, I think. So I have been in touch with them, and we have a pre-session meeting scheduled for December 4th at 11:30 in the morning. Their plan is to come here. And if there's any commissioners that would like to attend that meeting, you're welcome to be there and talk to them. But that's
I think that's the same
when
time
they
as
will be
FAC,
here.
right?
Yeah, that's FAC week, so for us.
Yeah, we'll be
so-
gone.
I will come. I'm not going to FAC, so I'll
Okay.
try to make a.
Okay. That's
To
an
listen.
opportunity for us to have that conversation with them. And while we had already approved the legislative projects for this year coming up, if you would like to look at them again and make changes, please do so as soon as possible, because there's a lot of work that goes into that before the delegation meeting. Once we're at the delegation meeting, we're kind of all set with what our program is, and then our actual funding requests will be due to the state by early February so that they can get, because March is the session. Does that answer the questions? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the calendar. We could set something up on the 9th from a workshop standpoint, so that would follow up
That's a
your
little
meetings.
late, right? Is that late? Too late?
Well, that gives me a month, well, maybe about a month to put everything together.
That was the other thing, was they, I guess they really only, like, it comes down that they only want 3 projects and tell us what the one project is, and
Right.
I don't know.
I'm hoping we'll hear soon on those DEP grants. I did talk to our lobbyists about that, because they've been in touch with Renner's chief of staff, and they've been working with DEP, but because of so many changes happening at DEP right now in staffing, that's why there's a bit of a delay. So hopefully maybe by December 4th, when we have the meeting, they might have more news for us. But there are 4 projects right now in DEP's hands for us, one of which is that US 1 water wastewater project, and then 3 stormwater projects.
Is there an appetite for a workshop on the 9th?
I'm fine with it if it were.
Okay, so I see 3, so there's at least consensus if you want to look at, that way we will follow up your meetings, everybody can be informed
Sure.
and have some final thoughts before you put everything together.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, any other comments on the capital projects?
Chair, if I could, I just wanted to provide an update on Bull Creek only because Commissioner Pennington brought it up. We did go out through the RFP process. We met with the one outfit that we wanted to move forward with negotiating the terms of their contract. They are going to be meeting with us the beginning of December to kind of go over the layout of the kitchen so that we are moving forward with that project. But I can provide a better update once we meet with them in December and then come back maybe after the first of the year. So I just wanted to let you know that we are working it. It's just I didn't include it today, so.
Okay, great, thank you. As Commissioner Sullivan noted, we have some guests that came in, so before, if it's okay with everybody, we'll have a break in the agenda to bring our supervisor of election up. So Ms. Lenhart wanted to address us.
Hello, Chair, Commission. I'm not here to talk about my new building.
State your name. State your name for the record, please.
This is Katie Lenhart, Supervisor of Elections. I'm here because Heidi has a surprise for David.
Oh.
And it is a certificate. I have
Surprised you, didn't we?
surprise. And I prepared a statement because if I got up here and tried to talk to you all about the canvassing board, I'm going to go off the rails and we'll be here for a couple hours because it's quite involved. So I just want to say a few words if you don't mind. So this is, the certificate is for your service on the canvassing board over the years. And there's also one for Commissioner O'Brien, which is right there. Good timing. So what is the canvassing board? I kind of wanted to explain that for those people who are viewing this and those in attendance who may not know. So the canvassing board is really what secures the process for voters across the state. The canvass process protects the vote. So in each election in Florida requires a canvassing board for the oversight and certification of the electoral process. The official election canvass is conducted in each county pursuant to Florida statutes and the rules of the Florida Administrative Code. The duties of the board can be summarized in 3 points, although we do a lot of things, but 3 main points, which is the first, to certify the voting equipment correctly counts each vote cast for all offices on all measures. And the second is to verify the accuracy and validity of all votes cast. And the third is to submit the official returns to the Department of State. Everybody wants the election results, right? Okay, so the canvassing board is comprised of myself, the supervisor of elections, a county court judge, and the chair of the county commissioners. Substitutes and alternate members are appointed if any statutory members are unable to serve. These 3 members represent the 3 branches of government. And in my opinion, that's really a beautiful design in Florida statute that brings all 3 branches together to come together to certify the election. Members of the board may not be candidates in the election being canvassed, which is one of the reasons sometimes commissioners are unable to serve. And they also may not be active participants in the campaign or candidacy of any candidate. So that often disqualifies folks from serving. So that's why we have alternates and substitutes. So not only do we test the voting equipment, count mail ballots and provisional ballots, audit each election, and certify the returns, but the board spends a lot of quality time together during recounts. So we have to order an automatic recount if the unofficial returns of a local candidate or measure was defeated or eliminated by 0.5% or less of the votes cast. So then we also conduct an machine recount when necessary. So Pam, you remember this oh so well. So for our recount in August, we spent 18 hours and 40 minutes meeting time together, conducting the manual and machine and then the 2 manual recounts. So the canvassing board must reconcile and verify all tabulations transmitted and submit those returns to the Department of State. Those returns include the canvass of election day voting precincts, early voting, vote by mail, overseas, write-in votes, and provisional ballots. So there's a lot involved with an election that people don't realize. It's not over election day. There's quite a lot going on there. And all canvassing board meetings are held, of course, at our office, Supervisor of Elections office, and they're open to the public. And the public is always encouraged to attend, although we don't usually have a lot of observers. We have 1 from each party representative, Democrat and Republican. So shout out really quick to Robin and Gail, who came to all of our meetings. And then we do have some public that comes on some occasions, but honestly, it's kind of not well attended. So the success of any organization is found in the heart of those who serve. So anytime I get in front of a microphone, I have to give a shout out also to my team. I'm proud to lead a team of elections professionals whose heart guides their work ethic. Our 200 plus election workers and my 11 full-time staff members, 7 of which are here today. They are simply incredible and should be celebrated for their extraordinary effort. We live election day every day for 3 weeks in a row, leading up to the actual election day. It's like the elections edition of Groundhog Day. It's the same day over and over and over, and it's exhausting. It's 10 to 12-hour days, long hours of nonstop problem solving and customer service. Multitasking has its own definition for us in elections administration. It takes determination and something far beyond a normal work ethic. It's not sustainable. We do it because we live, feel, and breathe the importance of this mission. It's not about anyone's personal politics or persuasions. It's about making sure every single voter has the opportunity to have their voice heard. And this turnout really was so encouraging for all of us. I was encouraged when I went to visit the early voting sites to hear the conversation and the chatter of total strangers standing together during early voting in the line, just chit-chatting, waiting their chance to get to the ballot box, as it should be. There was no hostility, no disagreements, just people in line, and that's what democracy looks like. And I'm so proud of our county and this tremendous turnout, the highest since 1996. So thank you, Flagler County, and thank you to the canvassing board. You really are part of the elections team. And Andy, you've been on the board, Greg as well. You put in many hours of labor and love and dedication to all 3 elections this year. And so I just wanted to say thank you. The presidential preference primary was in March, the August primary, and then our most recent election this month, we met for 34 public meetings and for a grand total of 81.3 hours of meeting time. That's a 2-week work week, or 2 work weeks, amount of time plus some overtime. So you may have spent more time in canvassing than you have on the dais. So I just wanted to say thank you to you and Donnie. So I have some certificates.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it was quite an experience, and I've done it 3 times, and 3 times this year, because there's 3 elections. But anyway,
Go down and
I'll
get
just
that,
go
yeah.
down.
Oh, great. bummer.
By the way, it's coming up, this will be a unique year coming up right away, because there's going to be another full election here.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I know,
And
I
you'll
know
be back for
Dave,
that, right?
Dave enjoyed every minute of those 80 hours.
Thank you all.
Katie, if I could say thank you to you and your staff. I spent 17 of those 18 and a half hours.
Yes, you did.
Probably the only candidate that ever did that since your administration. But your staff is probably the greatest performers, the kindest people, and the most warm and welcoming of any organization I've ever met. And that's a long lifetime career. So I personally thank you guys for being my friends and taking care of me.
Very
And
welcome.
let me cry for a second here because you're worth the tears. You're wonderful people. You made me very happy. And I want to thank you again, personally, from here to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam.
And I would just add that I think ultimately everybody up here should be an alternate at least to experience the process. My alternate time was great. I'm now in line to be on there as chair, or if, at least I guess my time has passed. I didn't get to do that, but it's a great opportunity.
You
Well,
being
we ma-
alternate this
we-
year, you called me a lot.
That's right. We did, Greg. Thank you for showing up. That was it's kind of last minute, and we appreciate that. I mean, we have to have all three members for some of our meetings, and at least at least two. I'll be there, okay? But I need another person, another canvassing board member. To do, you don't want me to make all the decisions. Really, you should have a canvassing board. That's why it's in place. That's why it's required. We will be having a special election, if you didn't know. Congressman Waltz has been called to serve in a new position elsewhere, and the state has not set a schedule yet for that election, but I think to be proactive, it would be wise with the new commission, as, after everything is settled, to appoint a new canvassing board, because it will be a countywide election for us. I expect that it would take place no earlier than the end of January, just based on my experience and knowing the timelines of things that can happen. I mean, they could surprise us in, mid-January, but it wouldn't be any sooner than that. But we will need a canvassing board, a countywide canvassing board for that special election. And it's a partisan office. So you're looking at a primary and a general, hopefully to be completed. Goodness. Well, I let them know that Flagler County and Putnam County, we both have municipal elections scheduled March 4th. And it would be very convenient if they were to schedule our election to coincide, at least one or the other, with that election date. Because for us to conduct a countywide election, a municipal election in the middle of it, and then a general election at some time in the future past that, it would be disruptive. It would be easier for us to go ahead and use that election date for one of their elections. So we'll see. I let Secretary Byrd know about that and the division director. So just
Thank
keep that in mind.
Thank you, staff, for being here. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thanks.
you.
All right, well, thanks. We will, we've got one more item on the agenda. So this is a request from Mark Langello concerning transportation impact fees. Who's gonna lead this one off?
Yes,
Mr. Hadid.
pardon me while I clear my throat. And also, not to put people off, but I'm wearing this because I've had a topical, so I have to minimize the light. So I want to be kind of in the shade here if you don't mind. Okay, what you have received a series of documents in your backup. To go through them just very quickly, chronologically, there is a completed application that was submitted to the county administrator, Craig Coffey, in 2018, responding to Mr. Langello's request to have a refund of his impact fees that he had paid between 2006 and 2008. Mr. Coffey, working with Ms. Sherman, determined with finality that no refund was owing. At that point in time, Mr. Langelo had 30 days to appeal to the county commission and did not do so. And he lost his right by not acting to challenge the payment. New county administrator came in 2019, Mr. Cameron. Mr. Langelo did visit with him and sought the same relief verbally. Mr. Cameron, who brought me into that conversation out of a generous spirit, felt that he would be willing to take a look to see if there was any injustice done in the determination made by Mr. Coffey. Now, that review was unsuccessful. It proceeded to the point where the county, where Mr. Cameron hired an independent planning professional to weigh the claim and found that no refund was owed, specifically on the basis that the proper documents were not submitted for a full review by that planning director. And those deficiencies were pointed out in the communication. But most importantly, and this came from the planning consultant as well as myself, that the person to ask for the refund is not necessarily the person who paid for it, but the person who has the property today. It has to be the property owner because it's an interest that goes with the property. Now, for example, there are two churches among those that paid impact fees. He could not ask for the impact fees that those churches paid a refund. And further importantly, he organized a lot of the development that he did there as condominium commercial space. Now, there's nothing wrong whatsoever with him using a condominium form of association. I mean, I've got certainly no quarrel with that. It's certainly entirely legal, entirely proper. It's a business decision. But the real party in interest, when there's an impact fee for a structure that is condoed out, is the condo association. The HOA is the party in interest. So they are not before you. Now, he may, and they didn't ask for the refund. Now, there may be other items that he built there, you know, that are not in condo association, that aren't churches, but they would be far smaller in comparison to all the buildings that he constructed. Let me see, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So he constructed, I believe, 7 total buildings. Now, since the issuance of that determination, that was in 2019, his request sort of languished until we had yet another county administrator, Ms. Petito, and he brought his claim to Ms. Petito, Mr. Salinas, and they sat down and reviewed it, and they ultimately were not persuaded that he was entitled to a claim. So to put it in a metaphor, he had 3 bites of the apple. And his time to proceed with any remedies has passed. Now, so you're looking at me, okay, so why is he here? He has asked to make a presentation. We could have had it on a regular board meeting, but if you've looked at any of the materials, you know it is very complicated, and to give him 3 minutes would not be fair. He has a First Amendment right to express himself. And then we thought through the actual structure of it. So he'd get the 3 minutes, he'd run out of the 3 minutes, the chair would extend the 3 minutes, and so we would be in a very unusual situation of breaking up whatever tempo he may have wanted to engage in. So we felt that putting him on the workshop, he's been asking for this, and this was an opportune time to do that. But it is our opinion that for the purposes of policy, for the purposes of protecting the county, that we not revive, not resurrect a claim, a legal claim, after it has been extinguished. All through these, at least I can say for the time with Mr. Coffey and Mr. Cameron, Ms. Petito and Mr. Salinas did not draw me into their conversations. A lot of time has been expended on this issue. Mr. Mengel has met with Mr. Langelo frequent times, and they've talked about it and argued about it. And of course, you know, they see each other every time there's a planning board meeting. I'm willing to wager that they probably mention it at some point during those things. So his rights have expired. His claims are barred. So we're urging you, that is the legal department, I think the administration joins me in this, I haven't actually asked, that you not take any action that would be interpreted as granting or reopening the claim. The claim is closed. But we do want to not deprive him of a First Amendment right to be able to address to you what he felt were the flaws in either the decision-making or the way that impact fees are administered. So I want to say that my conclusion, because I didn't want to just, I mean, that was a conclusion I made. I just didn't want to go with it just like that. Of course, I talked with my staff and got their input. They agreed with it, but I also asked Neighbors Giblin. And I know that some of you who go to the FAC, you're very familiar with that firm. I mean, they are the leading, one of the top leading firms in local government law, but in particularly in impact fee law. And as you recall, they helped us through the recent complete rewrite of the impact fees that we enacted in 2021. So they concurred that the claim is expired and we should do nothing to resurrect it. So with that, that's my opening, and you're certainly entitled to hear from Mr. Langelo unless you have any questions for me at this point or at any point. I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, let's have questions for Mr. Hadid first.
You referenced a 30-day opportunity to appeal and request the impact fees back. Is that local ordinance, state statute, code? What drives the 30-day?
That's our ordinance, but also in state law, you have to complete your total round trip of the administrative procedures in order to get into court. They call it exhaustion. You've heard it, exhaustion of administrative remedies. You have to exhaust your administrative remedies in a timely way in order to timely petition the court. The court does not want to hear from you, the policy behind that. The court doesn't want to hear from you unless you've exhausted all the means to remedy your problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
Well, one thing that was troubling as I was parsing my way through that was it seemed like he was chasing a date. That there was a date that he had to file by, and then he did, and then it changed, and then it changed again. And I thought to myself, that doesn't sound fair. I mean, because he's supposed to do it at this time, and then we changed, and then so he filed again, and we changed it again. So it got to where it was 14 years or 15 years.
You actually bring out a very good question. The start of Mr. Langelo's claim was he went to the planning department. And we don't know the exact date. He says it's in 2013. Mr. Mengel thinks it's 2012, where he wanted to file his claim. And he was informed, well, the time is not ready. You can't file. Mr. Mengel vociferously disagrees that he would have said that to anyone, Mr. Langelo or anyone in like circumstances. So I said, are you sure? Because, you know, if we mislead somebody, we can be held responsible for misleading them. I'm sure you all know that. The government can't mislead somebody out of their rights, so to speak. So I asked him, please check with every one of your people, because there's a number of key people that work in the office. Maybe they said something. And he told me no. And he has been adamant about that with Mr. Langella. Now, I want to tell you, Mr. Langella, and having said all of this, you must know that we all have to really respect Mr. Langello's knowledge. He has contributed a great deal to our planning board. He's been very active on impact fee issues all throughout. And, and I'm sure you all know he's not very friendly with impact fees, and we understand where the source of that might be. But he is knowledgeable. The point of that, he is knowledgeable. He's probably, if you, not counting any of the land use lawyers, we don't have that many of them in this town, or including outside of the government, he's probably the most knowledgeable person about land use law, about things of this sort. So he would have known that he should have filed. Now, he did say, well, there were no forms, but we didn't set up the impact fee system and develop forms for it to file for a refund. It's just triggered by a request. And of course, just like anything, you make a request. If the recipient of that request, that is the county administrator's office, thinks there's something missing, they ask for it, and that fills the amount, the quantum of information necessary to be able to pass on it, which, by the way, was exactly the point of the 2019 letter that he received, and said, look, these are missing and these are problems, and they weren't remedied. So yes, when you read that, you say, oh my gosh, it was this, and then it was this, and then it was this, but it all initiated from what he claimed was a refusal by the staff to take his application for a refund.
But that still doesn't address the changing target.
Because of the economic slump, and legislative action, there were extensions of the time for the collecting of impact fees. And remember now, there are downturn times. I want you to also keep in mind that at the same time, transportation infrastructure projects are incredibly expensive. Back then, way back then, it's maybe $1 million a mile, and now it's definitely $2+ million a mile. So you had to accumulate a lot of money to make a capacity increase in your major arterial road network. Remember now, this is not for neighborhood streets. This is not for access improvements like a lane to facilitate cars going into somebody's business. Those are not transportation impact fee. They are not considered the kind of capacity increasing expenditures that qualify. So when those pauses came, new dates came in, and that's why you're seeing the new dates. But if you looked at Mr. Coffey's conclusion, his analysis, all of his money was spent before any of that occurred. It was all spent within the 2008 timeframe. All of that money was gone. Why? Take you back to then. The county suffered, and I'm going to take you back a little bit so you have a historical perspective. And you're all going to know this when I start talking about it. The county was subjected to wildfires. And in the 98 wildfire, there was no ability to exit the county north out of 95 other than going A1A and Palm Coast Parkway. No way to do it. So the clamor was, we have to have another way out, Matanzas Parkway. Matanzas Parkway was extended from the east side of Palm Coast all the way to go to where? US 1. Where? US 1, north of this project. So it was a capacity improvement that had a nexus to his businesses, the churches. Did the churches build there because they only wanted Bunnell parishioners? I don't think so. Are the commercial type businesses that are there now only to serve Bunnell residents and businesses? No. I traveled Matanzas to get to his place, not to his particular place, but get to stores there within his complex. So those dates didn't trip him up because his money was already spent. Probably the flaw in what Mr. Coffey said was, it's already spent, and if you don't agree with that, well, you're too early. In other words, we have more time to spend it because of these postponements. But really, it was already spent. Mr. Coffey did not need to make the other comment. It was like, A, we already spent your money. And if you don't think we already spent your money, B, you're too early because we got more time to spend it.
Well, he also made a claim that, yes, we spent the money, but we didn't spend it correctly. That it should have been spent in District A, and it was spent in A, B, and C.
Actually, in the document that Mr. Coffey provided, he identified road segments that were within the city of Palm Coast. When the impact fee ordinance was created, the county was divided into two realms. The west side, agricultural, not expected to have extensive development that would place demands on capacity, but the east side certainly. And the east side was from the railroad tracks all the way to the ocean. The arterial, the major road work for Flagler County was in that area. When the city incorporated, it included the county roads, the county-owned roads, the arterials and the connectors that were part of the major road impact. They were going to be the beneficiaries of the transportation impact fees. He did not hide the fact that these were roads in the municipality, but the fact that in municipality forms doesn't prohibit us, where required, to improve, to make capacity improvements on our major arterial road network.
How's that? Anybody else?
So Al, even though the dates changed, that was like collection, right? Collection wise, those 2007, 14, or I'm sorry, 7, 14, and 15 years, that date, that the date that never changed was the 30-day appeal date, right? 30, it's always been 30 throughout the tape.
That's correct.
30 from the,
But that still troubled me that on this first application, the letter said, Coffey's letter said that you're early.
No, well, it said that, but the primary point was the money's already been spent.
Right.
If you look at that letter again, he said, look, the money's already been spent. And here's where it was spent on, and here's the amount. It provided the table.
I understand that, but the way that worked out, the dates worked out, he would not be eligible to even file for a refund until right now, 15 years, right? So he
If he,
you know, I mean, he couldn't have filed because that date kept changing. So
if he filed those later dates, the money was still already spent.
Roger, I understand it.
That's the rub. The money was already spent.
Okay, got it.
All right. Seeing no more questions, Mr. Langello. Welcome.
Just give me a second here. I was trying to take some notes. So,
Just make sure you state your name for the record.
yes, Mark Langelo. I have, first of all, I wanted to thank the board for finally getting to hear me. This has been a long, long process. I do want to differentiate something right from the get-go, okay? So as many of you know, I worked with this county for many, many years on many different levels, both as a planning board member, as a contractor in your school of your team of contractors out there building things. I've also I'm a homeowner, and thank you Heidi and Jorge for all the work, and a few commissioners who helped us a few years ago with the hurricanes to help get through some of the bureaucratic BS to be able to protect our houses on the beach. I've also worked with your county in some construction projects. So, I've been all the way around, and this is my only issue here. So any of my statements or upsetness, if you want to use that word, is related strictly to this. I just want to say that. I'm trying not to step on other people's toes and make, like I'm just some disgruntled person. This is an issue I have been dealing with for 18 years. I had a little statement, and I had to take some notes from what Mr. Deed said, so I'm going to have to kind of jump around a little bit because some of what he said I do need to bring up in this thing. I'll try to read from this, and then I'll have to break away to the issues that he brought up. Anyway, just a quick history of what had happened from my point of view, okay? My company, M&M, who should have been the name on the board there, not my name, applied for our first permit at our Atlantis project in 2006, 18 years ago. In the process, I spoke to the county administrator at the time, Mr. Wright. We discussed the validity of the county impact fees to our project because the major roads that served it, US 1, SR 100, and Royal Palms, these roads were either federal, state, or City of Palm Coast owned. But more importantly, all of the capital improvements on these roads have been and were planned to be paid for, if there was going to be any, by those three agencies and not the county or the City of Bunnell. That's important because you can't collect an impact fee from somebody and for a project that you're already getting state funding or some other funds for. So the funds that a fee payer pays is to be applied to a project with a concept called rational nexus, and I'll get into that in a second. You may already know what that is. Anyway, also the capacity of these roads were well below the need for any new capital improvement, and none were planned for. However, the traffic impact fee did have a part in the ordinance that would have allowed me to be exempted from paying these fees. And at the time, Mr. Wright agreed, you probably have a good case to not pay the fees. However, the process would entail me getting a traffic engineer and going through a lengthy study to show what the traffic patterns were. And also, it would take then a process that had yet to be developed by the county, which internally, which would have been able to review the study and then get that approved by the commission and then have that thing heard. Like in all projects, we were fighting time. This is 2006, if y'all remember, we just had the first step of a downturn. We had the savings and loan collapse, but we still were building. And I knew that I couldn't keep waiting on this impact fee thing to get resolved. I had to get my building permits. So we did go ahead and agree to that strategy that Mr. Wright had suggested, which was to pay the impact fees, and in 7 years, you're going to get your money back plus 6% interest. Now, it wasn't about that we wanted to wait. It was that it made more sense to wait because they weren't going to use the money to do any project that would have any rational nexus to us that they were going to pay for. So we went ahead and got our permits in 2006, another one in 2007, another one in 2008. Those are the permits for the work that we're talking about, not necessarily some of the other projects that Mr. Hadid talked about. You've since then had a moratorium on impact fees, and other buildings were built that had nothing to do with your impact fees. But those were the ones, those under those three permitting processes. So fast forward to 2013, and again, I won't argue with Adam if he says it was 2012. I mean, honestly, I can't remember every single day, but I went in there and I approached Adam about getting my fees back. And he said, oh, yeah, sure. And let me look up the rules. And he looked up and he said, no, you have to wait 14 years. And I said, well, no, it's 7 years. He said, no, it's 14 years. And he pulled out the code and he showed me. And I'm reading it, and it clearly said 14 years. So I kind of scratched my head, and they pulled it up in Muni Code, and Muni Code has a section of history that would tell you when things are changed. There was no historical change noted for that code. So I walked out of there thinking, I don't know how I could be so wrong between 7 and 14 years. I'm not an idiot, but somehow I got that wrong because it clearly said that, and I walked away. I waited a few more years, and I came back in there again, and this time I was told it was now 15 years. I said, wait a minute. You said 14. They looked at it. Again, in Muni Code, there were no changes made to the history that shows that there was a change made. However, I said, you know what? I asked Gina Lemon, please pull up the original statute, the filed statute in the courthouse. Pull that up, please. So she did, and she sent that to me. And there I did find the statute that was clearly 7 years. And then there was a bunch of changes. Now, you all do have that information in your backup, but you'll see a bunch of changes. There were some changes due to because of, as Mr. Hadid said, there was economic downturn. You all had a moratorium on impact fees. There was another change, had something to do with spec buildings. But one of the things that was key to me at that time and our attorney was that in the impact fee ordinance, it said very clearly that it was a 7-year process and you could extend it 10 years, but you had to have a finding specific to a project that was going to be done and started or worked on within the 3 years that you could extend it up to. Now that, even though the other changes were made, that change was never made in your ordinance, which made your timeline, in effect, 10 years. Now there was findings, the whereases in those documents that you can read, and it had a couple vague whereases. It talked about how the economy was bad, and it talked about how we need to get people back to work, but it also said that there could be a slowdown in funding up to 73% was one of the numbers it said in there, and that some of the projects may have to be, in general. This is just a general statement that would have to be extended. But there was no particular project that was identified in that report that said this project would happen like this. There was no specific finding of a project that would be done within the 3-year time frame. So again, the hasty changes to the ordinances, there's some other issues that are in conflict to it. It made this a muted point. It made it a muddy point, I should say. So what is the real time frame? So we said, this is crazy. We're going to apply now because the 10 years have gone and we need to start getting this process going. So we did send in our application. Now, I would like to switch over to what Mr. Hadid said in his opening statement, which I think is the key thing right off the bat. I mean, I'm going to have other points, but if you take Mr. Hadid's legal point of view, that I have a 30-day window to appeal, and you're going to hold to a window, then I win this thing hands down. The reason for that is, in the same ordinance that talked about the 30 days, the county had a 10-day period to acknowledge my application for the refund. By the way, there is no formal document. We just wrote a letter, and with all the information. It was stamped on the 1st of August. I think you have it in your backup. If you'd pull it up, you'd see the dates. I wish you would, if you would now. If you guys have that ability to pull it on your screen. The initial date was the 1st. The response back that they received it was on the 14th. So right off the bat, they missed the first deadline. Then you had no more than 20 days, which is a total of 30 days for the county administrator to get back to me. 30 days is what you had. It took 48 days. Now, during that, after the 30 days, I wrote an email. I have it in my information right here to Mr. Coffey saying, hey, you missed your deadlines. I want to be heard. I want this done. Please get this done here. And I also mentioned in there about my right to appeal this. Well, we finally got the letter from him, like I said, late. So if you take the concept that if you don't make your deadlines, then here's what has happened. Appellate courts and regular courts all over the country have determined that when several parties have a date specific to do something, and one of the parties don't meet that date, then, and in this case, if it's supposed to be a finding or some kind of information that was to be shared with that, that document, that information shared is no longer valid. In effect, making the only point of view to be heard is the one, in my case, my application. My application was timed, it was sent. The best of the timing we could figure was done. It was accepted by the county as this application, but denied on 2 points. He said, first of all, we didn't do it the right date, but they spent the money. So if you look at the dates, that they don't meet the dates. So he wants to say that the 30 days is up and then the whole thing is a moot point. Well, I would contend if that's our argument, then we all need to write a check today, because there is no argument to the dates that are on that. It was August 1st. And if you go to Mr. right there, it's date received. And if you go to his letter, and he states it in the letter, by the way, look at the date of the letter. If you would put that up there. There's no, not that one. Now that you have to skip through. If you're going to go through that, you keep going. There's payment slips, and I was providing all the documents needed for this. Keep going. That's not it. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Page 43.
And the 43, 42.
Yeah.
somewhere there.
It's the building permits. That was on the 14th that they received it, 14 days afterwards. And go up to the next one, if you would, please. And the 19th, which was 48 days later. Giving them that 1 day, you could say 49 days, however you want to look at it. I'm giving you the benefit of the day. That's 48 days later. So again, if we're going to play the date game, now I brought this up to staff over and over and over and over and over again, and I don't get any response to that. However, I have already hired attorneys on this issue. We had requested, well, I'm going to get to this in a minute. Let me just try to move forward. So anyway, we gave this thing, the application, we came back and we were told in that application that not only was it well past the dates provided, but that we didn't meet the timelines. But again, I encourage you to look at the 10-year timeline that it clearly states that was not rescinded in the ordinances. They gave the county have to make a specific finding on a project, and the project had to be done within 10 years. And it wasn't done. There wasn't a project done. Unless you take the concept of what he said, which was the Matanzas interchange. Okay, because that's what that document is trying to show you. That Matanzas interchange and some other little thing right there. So that's the next issue. So I guess you're all, I'm going to just say it anyway, I guess you're all probably heard of the idea of rational nexus. That's just a legal term, and basically it means a reasonable person would be able to assume that this relates to that. Okay? It can't be some convoluted thing that makes no sense to anybody, but somebody just states it. It has to be a rational nexus. That's the test that has been in both common law, the first statute that the state has, and the impact fees, and now the new state statute. The new statute just came back in about a year or so ago, which basically codified some things that were more things in common law. But that's the statute we're under right now, is the new one, which does state that. So in that rational nexus, there has to be also a benefit to the fee payer, and that benefit must be proportionate to the amount paid. Now, what does that mean? That means if I pay $10,000 for an impact fee, I would need to receive $10,000 worth of benefit back to my project. Okay. You can't take $10,000 from my project and give me $10 of benefit. So if one person took one trip on that road, you can't say, oh, well, there's a trip, so therefore you're paying for the road. That's not a rational nexus, and it's also, there's no benefit to the fee payer. At this time, I also want to say something I said the last time, the only other time I was able to get in front of this board, which was I tried to get in a public comment to get on a commission meeting. But I did mention that I want to make sure you guys all realize something, because the public doesn't realize it, and if anyone's listening in, I hope you hear this too, that this money is not taxpayer money. This is not taxpayer money. Guess whose money this is? This is my money. This is my company's money. This money was paid by me specifically in the concept that I am going to create a traffic capacity issue that would need to be rectified, and that this money was going to help offset that capacity. That's what this is about. This isn't about everybody has a building permit, let's get a fee, let's get a big fund and start doing things. Now, your own ordinance talks about the rational nexus and talks about exactly what I'm saying. Common law says it, and the state statute says it. So everybody isn't agreeing that what I am saying is the way it needs to be. So we have to talk about, is Matanzas interchange, which by Mr. Hadid's own statement was planned before my project, way back in the beginning when this ordinance came out, and way back in the beginning. Now, my project was 2006. This project had been planned, started, and whatever. You're not supposed to take an impact fee to pay for a previously planned thing unless that thing has a direct relationship to mine. But that is what they did. They took that money because they needed some money to pay the fees, so they just took this big hunk of money to do that. Well, one of the things we discovered, we put in a public records request and of what the fees were paid, what was going on with these fees. And I'll tell you guys, it is really bad news for the county, because the record keeping that has been done on this fee has been awful. But there were things that was gleaned in there. For instance, there was money spent in one district that came from another district. Not just my project, but other funds. Monies came from the east side of the county, went to the west side of the county as a, quote, loan many years ago. No record has ever been paid back. What that means is again, you're taking money from some fee payers, not taxpayers, taking their money. You're supposed to be doing something to benefit them and putting it somewhere else. Now, I have property on the west side. I used to live on the west side. I think the west side needs the roads. I was very happy to hear of some of the capital projects out there, that are being done, and they need it, and I'm all for it. I'm a taxpayer. I'm actually a major taxpayer. So I pay these monies in my taxes, or I'm paying them any impact fees. Mr. D says, I don't like impact fees. That's actually not true at all. I've been here for 44 years now. And the whole idea of the impact fee was that the new development, new residents, the new development, pay for their capacity and their capacity change. If there was going to be something done that I would have caused on my project, and my impact fee would have paid for it, I'd be all happier for it. I would say, great, this is something that I'm getting a benefit for, and I don't have any problem with that at all. I don't mind paying and doing the right thing. So, the comment that I don't maybe not like impact fees is 100% not true, because as a taxpayer, what I don't get from an impact fee is coming out of my pocket. And I understand that, and that was why we have them. That was why Home Rule started it and why we did it. But in this case, again, I go back to the validity of a project started well before my time. My project ever was even conceived of and paid for in a project. Now, it says, again, in your ordinance, you can't do that. It's all in that ordinance. You can't pay, and the state statute says the same thing. You can't pay for a project that had nothing to do with it and that was done before. That capacity issue was already brought up before yours. So I would like to bring up a couple points about that interchange. I have a study.
Mark, if you could start just coming to a conclusion.
Well, like I said, this is not an easy thing because there's a lot of points to it, Andy. So I'm trying to get to, the overall conclusion is I need my money back. Okay, that's the overall conclusion. But how do we get there? I have been trying to get this out. Let me talk to you about. This is about your point right here, is due process. I've been trying to get a meeting in front of you guys, trying to be heard. From the day that Mr. Coffey gave us that letter, my attorney and I reviewed it. We contacted their office. We started to appeal that process right then and there. And we wanted to be put on the agenda. Guess what? Didn't happen. Now, he says I didn't secure my right to it, but we tried. Like I said, I have an email During my wait, I said, we need to do this. I was well aware of it. I was aware of it. And we have an attorney who can testify in court that he tried and called. I called, could not get on the agenda. We have been trying through 3 different administrators to get on the agenda. We have yet to get on your agenda. I came in a public meeting, finally, out of frustration. I was given 3 minutes, and I had to sit down in that chair right there and just stay silent as Mr. Deed basically threw all this stuff out that I could no longer talk about. And then what the conclusion was, get together with Mr. Langelo and get him on the agenda. I was never still put on the agenda. And your backup, did you all get the letter that we requested back in March? We put in an actual physical letter this time. Our attorney wrote a physical letter to you back in March to say, put us on the agenda. And then there's emails finally back and forth that they say, oh, we got the letter now. And that was, the email started in April, and we kept saying, hey, emails going back and forth. I have them with me too. We were not given the due process to be heard, okay? My next step, which has been all along, which I don't know if I said this to staff, is we will 100% take this to court, but we have to go through, we need it to be in front of you, in front of our commission, so you all can hear this situation. Mr. Coffey made his rendering, but according to the statute, your ordinance, I should say, your ordinance says that I have to appeal it to you. We have been trying, administrator after administrator, staff after staff. You said about a letter. I don't remember a letter, but I could tell you, like, for instance, this meeting here, I never got formally noticed of this. You see, my attorney's not with me. That's because I happened to have a coincidental phone call with Adam Engel on last Friday. He said, hey, by the way, they're planning on something. We think it's going to be around this date. Stay tuned. This might happen. Really, yeah. But we don't know. We're still talking about it internally. So finally, and by the way, only one meeting that I ever bring this up at the end of the meeting, and that was the last meeting. I said, hey, where are we at with this? So I don't bring it up in my planning board meetings or after the meetings, Mr. Deed. I don't commingle these issues. I don't put any pressure on him and his position and me. I just want to be heard. And we were not heard. We were not noticed of this meeting. It actually, again, has, my name on there, not my company, but this is a company requesting this, not me personally. I had to call Lucy today to find out where was this meeting being held, because I know you thought some of the workshops are over there. I didn't have any time for this. I found out on Thursday afternoon that this was in fact going to happen. That's when I found out, Thursday, and here it is Monday. I wanted to get a court stenographer. I did not have time to get a court stenographer. My attorney already had a conflict with this date. So what do I do? Say, no, we're not going to make it? I mean, I've been waiting for this for years and years and years, at least to get in front of you. So I'm here now, and I'm trying to have this thing heard by you, because if we don't find a favorable outcome, we will take this to court on many different levels. I'd like to point out one other thing here as far as the, let's see, is it one? Yeah, there's the statute, the Florida statute, 163.31801, Mr. Deed knows that is the impact fee ordinance, clearly states that when there is a challenge to an impact fee, is the government that has the burden of proof, not me. It is the government by a preponderance of the evidence, okay? So you guys should have had information. I should have had information. You should, to prove that this road, 13 miles from my project, that really, again, no rational person could say, yeah, that's where the traffic is coming from. They're somehow getting off of the north end of 95 and coming up Matanzas Woods to come to Atlantis or back that way. Actually, if you're going to be that far north, you go straight down US 1. A straight shot and far less traffic and less miles. There is no logical pattern to this. But the state says that it's your burden of proof. There's been no proof given. There's been very little documentation ever given to me throughout all of these years. About all the times I meet with people, I keep meeting with the the new administrators and their staff and will bring me up to date what's going on. So we talk, we'd say our point of, okay, we'll get back to you. And maybe we have another meeting with the same, well, we've been looking at this. And the only response I've ever been hearing is, well, you've already had that settled into Mr. Coffey's letter. I said, no, we didn't. But it goes nowhere. But there's no real information. There's nothing given back to me. It's almost like we're purposely going to not give you stuff in writing. Okay? I mean, I'm not going to be nefarious here, but if you give it back to me in writing, that's what I'm taking to court with me. Instead, I got to take my conversations. But we will be going to court if I don't get this resolved. This is what today was about. Is about hearing this thing, okay? So the preponderance of evidence says that you need to prove it, not me need to prove it. However, I do have a traffic study back from when I first started my project to get my my decel lane put in. And that was made by the Lassiter Group. You guys have hired them yourself. You know Sans Lassiter. The Lassiter Group said that, I think it was, I have it right over here, but I'm going to quote, I think it was 35% or 25% of the traffic from Atlantis will be heading north on US 1 and the remainder south. Okay? So right off the bat, the majority of that traffic, far majority, is not going anywhere near Matanzas, going the other way. I have another traffic study too that shows that the Commerce Parkway that's being done has no relationship. I had that one done. They did that one. They did this particular analysis to show that that project has no bearing on my project because there's no discernible traffic that would go down from my project on US 1, go through the city of Benel, get on that connector, and then come back over to 100. You just turn on 100. It's not relieving any capacity. So there's been no capacity changes that are attributable to my project that you guys have done anywhere. Now, the district in
Mark, let me get to a point where I can have the
Okay.
commissioners ask you questions.
Okay.
Because we can't be here all day.
Okay. All right, if you're asking me not to go further, what am I going to say, Andy? I won't go any further.
No, I just want to get to the remainder of pertinent points so that everybody has some information to ask you questions. So
Okay, why don't I let you ask the questions? I took a whole bunch of notes on what he said that I could go over the points that he brought up. I don't know if you want me to do that or what, but I mean, again, I was trying to take them down as fast as I can. Again, the 30 days doesn't make any sense. By the way, where is Adam today? Adam was the one who reviewed this for you, county. He was your quote-unquote actual expert. Most of this is less about legal and more about planning, and he's not here. The review that was brought up by Mr. Hadid about Mr. Cameron that was paid, that review was never shared with us. We've asked for that several times. It wasn't shared with us. However, that review was piled into another thing for the gardens and was paid for, $24,000, I believe it was, by impact fees. Guess what? That's not allowed. You're supposed to pay for capital improvements and outlays of land, and then the administration of the impact fee, the collection of the impact fee. This is not about trying to determine whether or not that you had done the right job in doing it, nor was the garden supposed to be that review of the gardens part of an impact fee. That the impact fee, the people who paid that money was to pay for it. I don't know why we brought up a condo. The whole thing about the churches has no bearing on it. The concept, because it really doesn't. I mean, the fees were paid. He kept talking about this person of interest. If you have definitions in your ordinance, and that does not have a definition, I tried to find that definition, and there isn't really a good definition that's out there. There's not a good common definition of what your chapter says to do. So the idea of making up a thing, well, now that has to go along with the other person is made up because that part that he's saying is not defined in your chapter and is not defined under a normal meaning of the word. And again, I reviewed that with several attorneys and know that that's not true. And again, just so you know, what we did when we did our project, we were competing directly against a project in Palm Coast who is the same type of thing with us when we were building them, and they had no impact fees on that project, which is the end of Hargrove Grade. So because of that, we decided we weren't going to pass along that fee. We absorbed it, waiting to get our fee back so that we could compete directly. If not, we'd have to raise our fee up. So we said they're held back for that. Again, our First Amendment right, we were denied this due process for years and years and years. And I hardly think that a workshop, which you can't vote on, again, was the appeal that we've been trying for. Again, I mean, there's a lot of things he said. I'll leave without trying to get, into the weeds here. I'll let you ask me questions because I don't want to confuse this. It can be very confusing, which is one of the problems. This can be very confusing.
Okay. Thank you. At this point, commissioners, let me know if you've got some questions for Mr. Langella. Commissioner Pennington.
Mr. Langella, do you believe you have anything in your possession that shows that you either attempted to appeal or started questioning for an appeal within that 30-day window?
I do. And again, they did not meet their deadline. That letter right there. That is an email that I sent to Mr. Coffey that you'll have in your system somewhere that talks about this process.
So, Mr. Hadid, when would the 30-day window have been? Do we have that anywhere where he would have had the right to appeal? What days, date?
Sorry. He actually had two bites at that apple. One was with Mr. Coffey's determination, and then following with the determination from Mr. Cameron, which was communicated to him in 2019 and indicated what would need to be provided.
Yeah, that is not a determination though, Mr. Deed. And again, we had been asking for information where we're at, and that was the only information that was given. And again, they responded to that. We responded in kind back to that, trying to get this resolved, and it seemed to go nowhere. At every turn, I think you told me yourself on many occasions, hey, I got to handle the beach renourishment project. That's a bigger thing. I got to handle Captain's Barbecue. That's a more important thing. I've got to do. There was many other projects that always seemed to be more important than mine. And this is why this thing took forever. This was not any type of a quick review or list working under any kind of a due process system. But that was not a decision made. That was just, like you said, asking questions.
So, Mr. Hadid, his 30 days would start after this letter by Craig Coffey?
Yes.
So, and this is before this letter from Craig Coffey.
Yeah, that was where I knew about the dates. We did
September
our
7th.
ability to do that. We had called Mr. Coffey, both myself and our attorney. Obviously, I know what I have to do there. So it isn't that there's no information.
Did you respond to Mr. Coffey in writing after the 19th? Or, thank you, sorry.
I have, at the time, Jay Livingston was my attorney on that.
Saw that.
I asked Jay to go back in his file to see what we had in writing. However, the response does not ask for in writing or verbally. It doesn't say you have to do one or the other. We clearly were communicating verbally and trying to get, hey, what is going on? We need to get this heard. We want to be on the commission. We've been asking for this all along. So actually, we've been asking for that for many, many years. Finally, we wrote a letter, like I said, this year. This year, we wrote a letter. I mean, we just,
So when was the second bite of the apple?
After the 2019 determination that was sent to Mr. Langella, after the second review,
That's the
and partly based on his saying about
Harry's letter.
timeframes and so on. So the second review was conducted and identified that certain records needed to be submitted that were not, that the ordinance requires the current property owner who owns the development project for which the impact fee was paid. And I think there might have been one other thing. I don't have that letter in front of me. And there was been no response to that document.
Yes, there was responses, Mr. Deed. I mean, I don't want that to be, I don't want to leave that hanging that you said there was no response. There were many responses to it.
I don't see the Jerry Cameron letter. Is it in, I guess it wasn't
No,
in our
I
packet.
wrote it on his behalf. It's,
Is that the December 19th? You wrote a letter December 16th, 2019.
yes,
Okay, so that's technically the response. So after December 16th, 2019 would have started the 30-day window again?
correct.
And
Or that he fulfill what was requested within the document.
Okay, and so is there anything, Mr. Langelo, within
Well,
30?
Yeah, first of all, again, I mean, he has not I don't have my attorney here who was the people doing this, and that was a part of a due process thing. Like I said, I feel as if I was slighted on with this meeting. Second of all, he has yet to address in any fashion what I clearly show was a 48-day period between my application and a response.
Well, as to that, that was one of the, not that particular reason, but that was why Mr. Cameron was willing to reopen it and have it
But
examined.
Mr. Hadid, if he did not respond, if you, do you mind, Mr. Chair, if I ask, do I have to ask you or?
Go ahead.
Mr. Hadid? I'm sorry, I don't want to be confrontational, Mr. Hadid. But if a party does not respond within their time period, you already said, as if he said, my application would be null and void. If he doesn't respond in the time frame, isn't his response null and void?
Let's say you're correct. You were given another opportunity through Mr. Cameron.
Our opportunity was not to refile the thing. That's what we've been saying all along. You want us to refile this thing, to restate that's not what we were telling you from day one. We kept telling you, one, you did not spend the money in the right place, and second of all, you haven't responded to us in the correct amount of time. So in both cases, I mean, if you would have spent it in my district that affected me, I wouldn't be here today, both legally and right. I wouldn't be here. I've paid a lot more than this in impact fees over the years. So this is not just me not wanting to pay an impact fee.
All right, let's go back to the commission.
Well, and then I think my final is, Mr. Hadid, talk to me about the impact fee dispute running with a property owner.
Yeah, that's expressly stated in our ordinance.
What ordinance, do we know? Or
Could you
did-
pull that up,
Transportation
please?
Impact fee ordinance.
Okay.
I mean, the words are very clear. What is stated in my letter is accurate. I think they have it on the screens.
I have
now.
your letter, I think. Chapter 17. A refund application shall be submitted within 1 year following the end of the 14th year from the date on which the building permit was issued on the proposed development. The refund application shall include the following information: copy of the dated receipt issued for payment of the fee, a copy of the building permit, a copy of the receipt issued for the county for the payment of fee, and if evidence the applicant is the successor in interest to the fee payer.
Correct.
Okay.
And look into the definition of that in your definitions. It's in the beginning of your thing.
I have to pull the ordinance up in 17. It's the last 2 pages of this entire document.
And by the way,
Um,
the way that has been interpreted to me was if I was to have sold my company to somebody, then that is my successor in interest to the fee payer. I'm the fee payer. That's why if you look at the definitions, it clearly does not say what Mr. Deed is alluding to. That's a very convenient way to say it, but it's not there, and it's not there in the law. And that's why, again, we've been contending. And by the way, I still owned most of that property, but I think I owned 60% of what we had applied for at that time.
Well, it states,
From a-
if applicable, who determines what is applicable? Item number 4, if applicable, evidence that the applicant is the successor of interest to the fee payer? Who determines who's
That would,
applicable?
well, that's title. Basically, that's saying if it moved, to the property moved to a different owner, then it's applicable and it's that owner. It runs with the land.
But that's not what it says, though. It doesn't
So
say it
after
runs with the
14
land.
years, after 14 years, no land is going to change versus who paid the impact fee versus who can apply for a refund in 14 years?
No, he could,
Every
he,
payer of that impact fee for that property or that development cannot come, if, that
if
just
they,
doesn't make
if-
sense. That
if a developer paid the impact fee, sold the property and conveyed it to another, it's the other who has the right to collect that impact fee refund. Think about it otherwise from a policy standpoint. You have all kinds of projects that have been built with impact fees. Does the developer have the ability to come back to you and say, you owe me a refund, when who knows what the transaction terms were between that developer and the successor in interest to whom the developer sold, as to whether that was priced into the transaction?
I would contend, with all due respect, Mr. Deed, that this is just a conjecture of meaning that you're making, that it is not stated in there that way. And again, when it's been reviewed by other people, I don't have my attorney here again, that fee payers in succession is if I sold my company to somebody else, like, or I drop dead, the next guy comes up behind me, then he's the successor in interest in that fee payer, not the property owner, the fee payer. And again, these are again, this is like I said, a lot of this is a complex issue, but that at the time, they never asked, how much of it do I own? They didn't ask me that.
We could check the public records to find that
But
out,
you
and that's what we
you
did.
never did inquire, you didn't, that was just a thing thrown out there, you see? And we totally, and again, we feel very confident, and again, in circuit court, that would not hold up by the definitions in this chapter and by the definitions in use.
Commissioner Pennington?
So I saw in the Livingston letter, he concludes that you did not apply for the appeal after Craig Coffey's letter. He admits that or states that. So did you apply within 30 days of Al's letter? I'll get to my point in a second here. Did you apply, do you think you have any documents that show that you applied for appeal within 30 days of Mr. Hadid and Jerry Cameron's response? Do you think you have anything?
Again, the response wasn't a decision, and no, I don't have a written thing, because a lot of this stuff was in phone calls. We asked Mr. Coffey to be put on the agendas right after this, as I have been asking this commission, as I have had meetings with every single administrator. I don't have these things in writing. If I go up and I talk to someone in their face, I don't then put a letter in front of them and say, here, please write this. And I didn't do that. I didn't think I had to. I didn't think that kind of a game was going to be played with me.
So I'm just one of five, so I'm going to wrap it up here. So even if I could get past the 30-day rule, because I do feel, the intent has always been to appeal this. And I could probably argue with you on the nexus. I worry about the way that ordinance is written, because I just had it up, that if in fact we believe the dispute runs with the property owner, what's to keep the property owner from coming back at some point with the same argument and us paying out again and again? I know that's not even, I'm just literally saying the way the ordinance is written, it does.
Well, think about it.
Now
Think
you
about it,
know,
Leanne. Think
now
about
you know, excuse me, now you know precisely why these claims have short time fuses in order for them to mature into a dispute.
which again, we kept trying for years. But think about it, Leanne, look at the requirements of my document. For someone to appeal, it has to have the paid receipt, the canceled check. It has to have documents only me would have. They're not public record. This is not something just any old person can do. That helps go to the argument that I told you, that successor in interest, which is not defined, has more to do with the successor in interest of the fee payer.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes.
call for a break because I need to use the restroom? Is that all right?
Yes, sure. If there's no objection, we'll take a very short break.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll be back here at 3:28.
Okay, 5 minutes.
So your gavel back in?
Okay. All right. We are back from recess. My apologies, but I guess, is there any other questions? Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
your mic.
Thank you. All right. So really, based on the way this was all presented to us, it's just for information. There was no staff summary or any, other than the discussions we're having. There's nothing been presented as a formal analysis of anything other than the past letters from the administrators and everything. Adam, like you said, Mr. Mangle is not here. So I've got some planning questions, but mainly if there was an impact fee study done prior to the establishment of the ordinances. We just went through that process before we reenacted the transportation impact fees and the others that we implemented. There was the rational nexus was established within the study that was presented to us. That was the work done to establish the fee structure and the rational nexus. So I don't have that to be able to, but normally we pay the consultant do the study before you establish the ordinance because you're then establishing the rational nexus. I'm not so worried, right? The 30-day appeal is not so much what I'm focusing on. It's other than the fees being paid. If there was a rational nexus in a study, which is why I keep referring back to the study that established the 3 different zones. If there's allocation and we show proof of monies being paid based on within the time period established that follows the rational nexus established in the study, that would all really settle the issue, not so much the 30-day notice. Because we keep going back to Matanzas. Well, to me, that's settled in the study that established the 3 zones. If the money was paid to the zone appropriate to your location, that's the establishment of the nexus. And I don't have the information to be able to settle this. But so really, I'm not worried about the 30 days. It's more of did we follow the process with the ordinance that established and codified the information from the study. And obviously, I think we have to talk about next steps. So I want to hear from the commissioners on if I think there's so much that has to be settled legally. I would like the legal teams to either get together to settle this or to be able to appoint a mediator to be able to sit and go through this. I don't know what is the appropriate action from administration standpoint, what avenues are available to us to be able to get that done. But I want to hear from everybody else. I just feel like the only other option is to have this as an agenda item to where we have staff's analysis and a step-by-step approach of how we as a county have established that the fees have been collected and paid appropriately. So there seems to be 2 avenues to me, but I want to hear what everybody else has to say. So Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's got to be a meeting of the attorneys on this because in my mind, the fees were not spent appropriately. That was my takeaway on this. And so, but I'm not a lawyer. And I would like to have that settled or get that. And I think maybe that's the way to do it, is have some kind of meeting between the lawyers and then come to us with, even if we have to, if they can't reach an agreement, then I think a mediator is the right guy to do that, and we have one. We have a mediator on contract, I guess, and then come to us with a recommendation. But yeah, I think there's more to look at here, more than what we can do tonight, at any rate.
So, yep. So, I have to wrap my brain around the nexus. So I agree with the impact study at the time. If that would have been, I understand Mr. Coffey's letter. I just would like to see where his rationale came from. Then my other question is, who does the impact fee dispute run with? The now property owner or the current? And those are not answered here today. I also heard Mr. Langello repeatedly state that he did not really have notice of this workshop, nor did he have his attorney or a right to it in due process. So I think that you should be afforded that, going forward. And so I agree that, I don't think we're settled here on one way or the other. And I think you should have the ability to have your attorney present at whatever next step is.
I just want to clarify, I never said I wasn't given any notice. I just wasn't given proper notice.
Right. Understood.
And I do want to state for the record that I did advise his counsel of this meeting.
Who did you advise?
Your most current counselor, Dennis Baer.
When did you advise him? Because I talked to him on during the week, and he had not heard from anybody. So I'm not
Spoke to
sure.
him last week.
I'd like to find out when that was, because I talked to him and he did not know.
Yeah, I would like to make sure that we all have copies of that too, since it's been brought into question. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said so far. I don't think this is a workshop. so
Right.
It wasn't going to be a decision made, but based on the information provided, if we had a decision meeting right after this meeting, I would not have enough information to make any kind of decision on this at this point.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay, because if it comes back, you all are going to be in the middle of it.
No,
Oh,
I
Andy?
basically agree that it's long overdue, but we need a whole lot more information.
And Andy, I'd like to see some clarification of what's been said, what's been put in writing, because that which is put in writing is fact, and that which is, the rest has been, I've heard a lot of hearsay here from both of the complainant or the resident, as well as our attorney. I'd like to see what's in writing specifically addressing this matter and timeframes. It seems to be the bug of your contention, but there's a lot of vagueness going on, and I'm not comfortable with making any decision about.
Mr. Hadid, so what's available to us as a next step?
Well, if you want to go with what you had started to outline, that you'd like the parties to get together. And by the way, when you talk about attorneys, I just want to put this footnote and make sure you all understand that my role in land use development is very limited. It is only when the land use development issue comes to you as a board. So I don't work with the daily ins and out of transportation impact fees. The work that he's referring to is not work that I would do. It would be the work that the planning department would do and whoever else they might have involved in that process. So the parties come together. The planning, if there's any planning stuff he has, that would be very important in that context. We see where we go from there. And I can't remember who mentioned it. Maybe it was Mr. Hanson, the possibility of using our special magistrate as a mediator.
I would say that I am not, I don't have an attorney in front of me, but just, I'm not open to a process with a special magistrate because the court system is where I'm going to go. And I do not want to vacate my right to take it to a court system by a special magistrate. So I don't mind at all having one more attempt at this with staff, but as you had said from years ago, we've been trying to exhaust our appeal right with the county to take it to court if we can't get this resolved. It's just been absolutely, a journey I never thought I'd be on.
Well, you can take it to the court today if you
We
want.
could. Our process, according to this record, was to appeal, which we kept trying to do. That's what I said. And so we were then given the right to talk to your other administrators, and, okay, we're going to get this going again, fine. It's been my hope that we could solve this in-house, because there's so many irregularities and there's so many problems with money, how it's spent, and everything else, that this is just going to be an ugly black eye. It's going to cost the county money. I'm a taxpayer, so I'm going to be paying both sides of this thing. It's going to cost a lot of time on all sides. This was the first remedy, which is why the court allowed that. And then if not, then I go there. So I was trying to get this heard by you. I don't mind one more step, which was trying to get the facts, bring out the facts, so each party is not walking into a blind meeting, as I was sort of today, because again, I had no information. There was no staff report. There was nothing. I had no idea where staff. I knew was Adam was working on it. So yes, if we could do that. But I would ask that there be that we kind of accelerate this meeting and not make this turn into 2028.
Right, I agree.
Should we just bring it back as an agenda item in January and go ahead and let our legal and his counsel just a proper agenda item for a vote so that he's not languishing?
How much time would you like?
Again, I'm not here with my attorney,
Right.
and we're about ready to go in the holiday season for everybody. So that is an issue. I
Right.
don't know what his availability is.
Well, we're looking at next year, I would assume, early in the spring, so.
I was hoping, honestly, to be very honest with you, I was hoping to have this on an agenda this week. That's what I thought we were trying to get to, but I never got the information, and I'm here at this workshop. And I do appreciate the idea that this was going to take time. And it is. This is a timely manner, but the points that he brought up were stuff that we need to have our issues to respond to, and we can't just show up blind in a meeting after all these years, so.
I would say with the direction given that staff and you and your legal counsel get back together, I would assume if there is not a reasonable middle ground or conclusion, that our administrator will come back and probably put this on the agenda as the final action.
So are we saying then unless both parties agree, we can hear this in January, and if we can hear it sooner, if we get together, we can maybe hear it sooner, but that way we have some sort of a date, one of the two. Are you having a first meeting in January? Or
Januaries are tough. Let's at least February at the latest.
Okay. I'm just getting older, Andy. Actually, I think February would be almost 19 years on the first one, just so you know.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Any other comments, recommendations?
There is a mention in letter dated December 16th, 2019, that we determined to hire an outside consultant to perform the planning end of the question. She is unable to complete, asked for some information. You willing to look at her report or have?
We asked
have
for that
them-
report. I mean,
Finish it because-
you alluded to it, but we've actually formally requested that a few times. I guess we can do a formal record request for it.
She was unable to do the report because she did not have the required documentation from the applicant. And by the way, just for the record, Ms. Pennington, the current ordinance, which has the provisions relating to refund of fees, the very first subpart 1, the then current owner shall petition the county for the refund.
Okay, I would like to point out, Mr. D, though, when was that document made? When was this ordinance made? 2022, 23, I think, right?
21.
21, okay. My appeals, my request, everything has been done years before this. So we're just moving the goalposts. So we changed the rules now. Again, I can tell you that contractually, this is sort of a contractual agreement. this agreement was made in the original document. So how we will lean on it. That's how I mean, that's the original way. We paid this to get it back. And if you keep changing it, that just because you put it in a rule doesn't necessarily mean that would then apply to me, especially in this type of an agreement. This is a one-sided, that you guys make a change to a document, you overhaul the whole thing, and then say, now we did this in 2022, and that applies to you back in 2006.
Members of the board, this was not the Mark Langella amendment. This was to reflect current law in enforcing impact fees, that it's got to be the successor in interest to the property because it runs with the property. It's not personal to the person that paid it.
All right, we're not going to litigate this here
Yeah, I
today,
know, I hear
so
you. I hear you.
we're going to move on.
Okay.
But keep us, hopefully get some, with your attorney, you're able to get some time, mutual time
Could we
together.
reach out to Heidi? Is
I
that what
would,
you want?
yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir, for your
Thank
time.
you, everybody.
Appreciate it. All right, at this time, we'll open it for public comment. We had capital projects discussion and our discussion with Mr. Langella. Does anybody wish to address the public, wish to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Anything else we needed to discuss today? Ms. Petito, anything?
No, sir, we didn't have anything else.
Okay, so we'll be back here at 5?
5 o'clock.
Okay.
Mr.
5
Chairman, I
o'clock.
move we adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. Thank you. Be back here at 5.